finishing up The Historian today by Elizabeth Kostova, and it is a 906-page book. She's pretty thick. So I was on page 25 when I stopped last night, and so far in the story, it is a professor, Professor Rossi, right? And he is somehow been picked by Dracula. I don't quite understand why yet, but I understand that Dracula wants him to, like, I think what Dracula is doing in the story is that he's going around and having his cronies collect like works to try and like erase himself from history. So there's like no, proof that he's existing. So it starts off with what I thought was Rossi's daughter, but it's not. And she's telling the story of what it was like growing up with her father. And then as we go on, Professor Rossi's a professor, right? So he has a student, and the student's name is Paul. We don't know that right away, but Paul ends up getting a book, and it's kind of telling him about like Dracula and all these things, and he's like, this isn't my book, but he can't seem to get rid of the book. So he goes to the professor, and the professor's saying, whoever gets one of those books has been chosen, pretty much. Like, you don't have a choice. I don't want to know about your adventures. I don't want to know about your research, but like, I've had a book too, and I know that it's real, and then I stopped searching. Like, so Professor Rossi's been through pretty much the same thing that Paul's going through in his earlier years. So he's telling him about that. Paul thinks he's lost his mind, and then the professor goes missing. Like, Professor Rossi's gone. Nobody knows where he is. He's just, it looks violent, but they don't think that he's dead. And then on his journeys of like researching Dracula and like going to Istanbul and seeing like what he can find in the churches, or what he can find in like the archives, the old libraries, his stuff starts getting messed with again, like maps, books, somebody's coming and taking them from him. And he's like, WTF, what are you doing? And nobody has a good answer for it. Then he runs into Helen, who is actually Rossi's daughter, but he does not, like, she never met him for some reason. Don't know why yet. We don't know why yet. So Rossi has a daughter. So the kid, the boy Paul, that Rossi took on as like his son kind of thing, like a father figure, and Rossi's biological daughter have met now in a library, both looking for Dracula. So that is where we are. And she's saying that her mother might know more, but like she's in a different country and she can't talk to her mother. She can't go visit for like another 2 years. And they're like, that's not good enough. So that's kind of where we are right now, is the two have met. And she's like, oh, you knew my father. And he's like, you're her daughter? You're his daughter? Wow. And like, so it's a very small world, but it feels almost as though Dracula is choosing people and bringing them together. Like, why does he want the daughter? Why does he want the son? And then the little girl who's telling the story in the beginning, I cheated and I looked, it's Paul and Helen's daughter. So it's Professor Rossi, I guess you call him like he's the godfather to Paul, and then he's actual father to Helen, and then Helen and Paul get together and have a baby, which hasn't happened in the story yet, but I'm a nosy turd. So at least we know that it wasn't Helen telling the story in chapter 1. She was not the one talking about finding the book, the Kama Sutra, like that her father had raised her, that they had a housemate. That's not Helen. That's Helen's daughter. And something happens to Helen because they call the little girl in the beginning a motherless child. So what happens to Helen? And when do Paul and Helen get along? Because right now they don't like each other very much.